Welcome to our January edition of Office Hours. This one is about ChatGPT Unlocked, a beginner's guide to AI made simple. Just some housekeeping, maybe try and keep yourself on mute. If you have any questions, put them in the chat, or maybe will there be a Q&A at the end?
There's supposed to be one. I'm looking at the chat. I like it when people interrupt me to the extent they want. They're more than welcome. If you stump me, I have to build you something for free. That's the rule. So, go for it.
All right, well, so here's Dustin for Office
Yeah.
Hours.
Hi, everybody. Thank you guys again so much for having me, Bonnie and Mandy. I'm really excited to be here. My name is Dustin Sitton. For those of you who don't know me, I've been an ABC member for a couple of years now. We are based in Baltimore, Maryland. My company is Incite Automation. We're a low-code software development shop. We do a lot of integrations with Procore, Bluebeam, building field service systems for Service Titan and things of that ilk as well. We've worked with quite a few in the construction space, helping them leverage IT both at a personal level and at the enterprise level. So I'm really excited to be here today. Nationally, we're pretty well known for building systems, not just locally, but across the country. We're considered a major partner of Microsoft and Gartner, Ingram Micro, TD SYNNEX, a lot of big, heavy-hitting names, and we're considered really good at this. So after this, if you want to talk about some other use cases you might have, by all means, you're more than welcome to reach out to me, to us. This is one of my favorite things to talk about. I like it when these are interactive. There will be Q&A at the end, but by all means, feel free to throw questions in the chat or work up the guts to ask me something. I love it when people make me sweat, and I love it when these are interactive. It's my favorite thing. So to start out, first thing Bonnie wanted me to talk about was what is AI? What is ChatGPT? How does this stuff work? And I'm going to cover that off pretty quick so that I can get to some more meat that I want you guys to really know. I don't know about all of you, but when I start saying most sentences that I say, I don't pre-plan them, right? The words I'm saying as I speak just naturally flow out of my being. And you may have noticed when you've seen people use AI that the words don't just come out in a block, they sort of pop up as they go. And the reason is that an AI at its core works a lot like how our brains work, except they've been trained not on the experiences that we've had growing up. They've been trained on essentially everything that's on the internet. Reddit, Google News, you name it, it's used all of that information and has made a giant probability engine. Based on what I just said to you, AI, use probability to figure out, based on all of your training, what the next word should be. And then once you've put that word, what is the probability of the best interaction for the next word and the next word and the next word? And it does that again and again and again until it has completed the request to yours and mine and its satisfaction. That's all it's doing. That's why you see it jump through that. And that's also why it takes so much gosh darn electricity to make one of these go. If those of you don't know, every time you ask a question, every time you see me do something in this, it's usually about 2 to 6 cents of electricity usage and server usage for every question. A Google search is a fraction of 1 cent every time you search in it. So this takes a lot of computing power to do. And being in the stages of AI, we require an immense amount of information to make these systems work. And the way I liken it is the models we use today, we're still in this phase of a cheap old Bic razor with one blade, right? It takes all the information, the sum total of all human knowledge, every book, every poem, every song, every movie, everything we've ever written in a forum, to make an AI that's about as smart as you or me. Isn't that surprising? Like if you were to ask an intern, hey, I need you to write a contract. Here's 2 or 3 contracts, how we do them. That would be enough. In this system, you have to say, hey, I want you to write a contract. Here's the sum total of all human knowledge to train it with. It takes a lot. And so I predict over the years, we're going to build models that aren't that cheap Bic razor. right? But have 5 blades, and I can make it with one pass as opposed to the several that I'm going to use a cheap Bic razor I have to do, right? We're trying to solve this because we're impatient by adding more hardware, more servers, more graphics cards, more server farms, all that sort of stuff. And that helps. But I predict over the years when we build better models that can glean stuff out, that's what's really going to move the needle forward. Okay. So that's how AI, all of these AIs work at their core. They're probability engines based on the information fed to them. And the question I ask, what is the probability of the best next thing to say? Rinse and repeat until I have what I want. Next thing that's on this list is, what is ChatGPT? They're one of the granddaddies of this, the first to really break through, and everybody else has come up with models as well. As you're going to find out later, they all have their strengths and weaknesses. Google's Gemini, Claude is another big player. We'll talk about Microsoft's Copilot product. And of course, I'm going to show off some ChatGPT in this and how I evaluate and judge them, and which ones I use and how and why. We'll talk about that. So before I get into what's the difference between them, I'm going to share my screen and talk about a few other things that I want you guys to think about as you start exploring and playing with some of this stuff. Other thing I want to say is that whenever I talk to any audience of business owners, staff, you name it, everybody feels behind. And I am here to tell you, as somebody who implements this and consults with lots of organizations, you are not behind, okay? Just the fact that you're here today puts you ahead of 90% of people. It is okay if you're not using this stuff today. It's okay if you're just getting started. You are not behind the curve. Everyone thinks they are, and everyone is dead wrong, okay? So don't worry about that. You're right where you should be right now in the world compared to everybody else. Everybody can see my screen, right? It's big enough. I want you to think about AI as you start your journey, a couple of different ways so that we don't start out with any bad habits as you start to experiment and play. The first thing I want to do is I want to show you, I'm here in ChatGPT, and I wanted to make an image right before this meeting. Make an image that represents AI as personal use, and then I spelled "and" wrong and said versus enterprise use, and buckets it into 3 categories. And it did, but it didn't do it quite right. So I said swap personal enterprise at the bottom. You got that wrong. And I ended up with this great slide that I'm going to use right now. I want you to think about AI as personal use and enterprise use, okay? A personal use AI is Copilot from Microsoft, or ChatGPT personal, or Google's Gemini personal. Versus when you're at work, there's enterprise solutions like Microsoft's Copilot Studio, ChatGPT Enterprise, and Google Gemini Enterprise. The difference between the two, we'll get into more a little bit later, but it's super important to me that you don't start using a personal use AI at work. Okay. And the reason for that is when you're at home, the AI that you use there for your own use, that's great. But when you're at work, if you use a personal AI use there and you start training it and getting it the way you like it, no other employee in your organization gets to benefit from that. The biggest difference between an enterprise AI and a personal use is when you're building an enterprise AI, it's being used across the entirety of your organization. Every employee makes it stronger. And I see a lot of organizations where they'll buy 10 members of their staff ChatGPT, and everybody's in there doing their thing, but the organization isn't getting better or smarter. Just each individual employee is in their own way. It's kind of like keeping all the files on your laptops versus putting them in a file server or Dropbox or SharePoint, right? You'd never go back to putting all your files on your own computers again, I hope, right? And this is the same in that. So I want you to bucket them in that way, and don't fall into the trap of starting to use an AI that's just for you at work. There's security and privacy implications with that. Really bucket the two. I see that mistake made a lot. Then, once you've got those two concepts down, I want you to think of them as lightweight, medium, and heavy, okay? Especially in enterprise, there's a lightweight AI. You just turn it on and you use it like Microsoft's Copilot. Then there's a medium level, okay? Like Copilot Studio from Microsoft, which lets you actually go in and hook up your databases like Procore and Bluebeam and other systems that you'd use to your system. With an AI at this level, I'm not building the AI from scratch, but I'm able to bring in all the data from my organization so that when I'm having conversations from the systems I use, I can bring it in. And I can teach that the medium level duty AI, how to interact with my systems as well. Okay. And then lastly, I can deploy it however I want. We can talk about that more later if you want. And then there's heavy configuration AIs where you're really building your own AI from the ground up, which is not something in your industry I suspect you're going to have to do much of or anytime soon. Okay. I tend to prefer for enterprise use, and we'll talk about personal some more, I promise, the one in the middle, okay? Because it abstracts away all the really heavy lifting, and when new features and functionality comes out, you can take advantage of them. And I don't really like for businesses the lightweight models. I find that when you don't have your organization's data and contracts in the system, it's not as useful as it could be. I'll lead this in to tell my first story of a way that a construction organization I'm working with is using this stuff. And they're using this medium level of tool. What they do is concrete, and they do it on a pretty large scale in the state of New York. And they asked us to help them build an AI that will read a request for proposal from like a large government institution. We're building a new high school, okay? And instead of reading the 850-page document, we use the AI to say, tease out all the parts that have to do with concrete, because that's all they do. They don't want to read the whole document and they don't want to miss anything. So they take that 850-page document, they upload it into their AI, and they say, just get me the stuff that pertains to what we do. And it makes a new version of the PDF that only gives them the parts they'd be interested in. And then they decide if they're going to bid or not, and they'll have the AI help them write it. As I was preparing for this meeting and I wanted to create this, I smirked and I said, well, I know my audience. Maybe it'd help if instead of you showing robots, do it one more time, but this time do it with a Ford Maverick, a Ford F-150, and a Ford F-350 Super Duty. And so I asked it to build that slide, and here we are. So ta-da! If the first slide didn't hammer it home, I hope that helps all of you. It certainly helped me. Guys, how am I doing so far? Because I can't see anybody. Am I boring you? Is this fun? Somebody give me like a thumbs up, or man, you're somebody. Good. Okay, I got a thumbs up. Thank you. I appreciate that. But that's the way I use that. And thank you, Mandy. And so you can see here a chat that I was doing and what I asked for and what I got. If you want to see how Google's Gemini compares, pretty easy. Thank you, Bonnie. All you have to do is go over to its tool. And isn't it interesting? I copied and pasted the exact same sentence into Google's Gemini, and look at the slide it created. Much more detailed, but not necessarily more clear or better in my opinion, but absolutely different. You know what I mean? And interesting in its own right. What's the medium version of ChatGPT? Barbara asks. There's a ChatGPT Pro, okay? So there's personal, pro, and enterprise. So that's its medium tier, okay? But you can see this slide looks very different. And again, I asked it, this is great, but liken it to a Ford Maverick F-150 and an F-350 Super Duty. And again, it made this version of the picture. I tend to find that I like Gemini's image and video production and blueprint work better than ChatGPT's. But I also tend to find that I like ChatGPT for general text and research better. So I may end up using one or both. For those of you that don't know me, I'm a big pinball nerd. I play a lot of pinball. I build pinball machines. It's a whole thing. I actually fed it images of two of my favorite pinball machines. And I said, hey, I'm designing a threequel, a third in the series of these two. Here are the back glasses of these two machines. And if I was making a third, what could you make that image look like? And it made this, Gemini. That was pretty cool, pretty impressive. I said, keep the old characters, add a new, bigger, badder boss. And I said, no, he's not supposed to have legs. He's supposed to have rockets instead of legs at the bottom. So try again. And they gave me that. Pretty impressive, right? What these tools can come up with when I'm playing around. But that's all gobbledygook stuff. I'll show you some more actual sort of like use cases. One, really, I want you to start thinking about the busy work that you do at work and at home. When I'm trying to figure out a trip that I want to plan, instead of me researching what are flights out of Southwest that are one way, and because I've got two kids, I want to go skiing further out west. But whenever we land, my son can't be in a car for more than 45 minutes or he loses his mind. I want to go somewhere skiing. It's a direct flight from BWI on Southwest. And once I land, I don't have to drive more than 45 minutes and they have to have snowboarding and skiing. But other than that, I don't care. And it will help me plan out a trip from there, right? I could compile that on my own, but this saves me a lot of time. And I figured out which AI I like more by sort of trying them all out and seeing which ones are better for which scenarios in a situation like that. I will do some live examples as part of this, Lupe, but sometimes some of these, like this, took a full 4 minutes to generate. And so I was trying to redo some of these in advance just to show that. But I'm going to show some stuff as we go. And yeah, actually, Jim just asked me to talk about integrations. That's actually where I was going to go next anyway. Another big way that I will often judge these is based on what they connect to. Okay, so here in ChatGPT, for example, where's my section of settings? In here, if we look at ChatGPT, I can connect ChatGPT to all these software applications and systems that I use every day. For example, if I hook it up to OpenTable, then it can book restaurants for me. If I hook it up to Spotify, it can make music recommendations for me and play songs for me. If I hook it up to Figma, I can do stuff in PowerPoint without using PowerPoint, right? There's lots and lots of applications that I can hook up to get further in what I do for a living. And you should look at this list. It's pretty good. And in ChatGPT's case, it's pretty robust. If you go to Gemini's list, it's a lot less impressive. They don't have nearly as many things to connect with at this time. It's just another thing to think about as you're making your choice. Right now, this list is pretty sparse from Google, but doesn't necessarily mean it's a worse AI, but that's a category that I'll often look at. When I'm talking about enterprise use AI, keeping on your question, Jim, I'm a big fan of Microsoft's Copilot Studio. It does not cost $30 per user per month for your organization. It costs a few pennies per message. When I want to ingest data on a business side, you truly can bring in anything that has an API. APIs are the way computer programs talk behind the scenes. You can hook up all of your organization's files. You can hook up everything you have. And then once you're done building your system, you can deploy what you've built into Word, into Outlook, into Excel, into all the systems that you use every day, right? So I'm a big fan of it. Also because people tell me, is Copilot as good as ChatGPT? Well, it's not as good. It literally is ChatGPT. That's part of the reason I wanted to make it a part of this presentation. For those of you who don't know, Microsoft owns 49% of OpenAI and ChatGPT. So the engine they use is very literally ChatGPT. You can see it right here. I chose that model in Copilot Studio. And they own a good portion of Claude, for those of you familiar with Claude, and I can swap back and forth between the two when I'm using stuff in my systems. In my organization, there's all sorts of examples that I could show you of how we work. But before I get into them, I really want to hit home something. So if you've been moderately paying attention to me, great. But there's something I want to say to all of you that's super important that I often see missed in these presentations. I see a lot of speakers come up on stages and they'll try to wow you with an Excel spreadsheet, right? And we all have Excel spreadsheets, I know that. But they'll hook the AI, whatever it is, up to the Excel spreadsheet, no big deal. And they'll say, look at all these graphs and charts and things I can learn from this Excel spreadsheet. I urge all of you to ignore those people and not do that, okay? That is a bad use of AI. A spreadsheet does not understand how you calculate what you calculate. A spreadsheet doesn't have native to it how this tab relates to this tab, right? And often when I see speakers do that with financial data, I'll go with my hand like this, and I'll go, did you explain to ChatGPT how return on ROI is calculated? No, I did not. Did you explain to it how you calculate markup fees on inventory? No, I did not. Did you explain, all of the taxes that are paid? No, I did not. So where the hell are these pie charts coming from? Did you validate any of this data in Timberline as correct or Sage 50 construction? No, I did not. I see a lot of people doing the basics and getting something because, as we all know, AIs will aim to please and tell you, something. It will guess sometimes. But if you really want this stuff to work right, you all have to have some form of a database, a real system that keeps track of your data. A database could be something homegrown using Microsoft's Power Platform. It could be Procore, a real system, not just a bunch of notes, not just a spreadsheet. There's a saying in IT, bad data in, bad data out. And these tools, these AIs, do not change that. Bad data in, bad data out is law, okay? And I see a lot of organizations trying to sprinkle AI pixie dust on top of their spreadsheets and their notes to get a better result. And those are the projects that you hear about that fail. The first place you have to start once you move beyond the basics of making your world a little bit easier is my data where it needs to be? Is my data in too many data sources? You have to start the conversation there. And that's often what we're advising when we talk to people, and they're struggling to get started, maybe not in their personal lives, but in their work lives with these things. You've got to start there. And if you don't have a good system, those of you in the Microsoft ecosystem, you own tools like Power Apps. And you can say in Power Apps using AI, I need my staff to check out equipment and be notified of due dates, right? Or I need a better system to keep track of submittals. I'll get to your question, Jim, in a second there. And these AIs, even if you're not a software developer, can build you a database, can build you an application. This is what's called vibe coding. And maybe it won't get you all the way there. You can call me for that. It'll show you what a database is and how one interacts, and it can build you an interface to keep track of whatever you need to keep track of and start getting you into the game of software. I love these vibe coding AI tools that help build software and databases because they let users that have never touched this stuff learn how a database works and what they need to ask and what they need to think about. And it makes it far more approachable for them, which used to be a large part of my job, still is. But now it can make recommendations of how to build out a database. And then you can go in and say, oh, I also want serial number. And for vehicles, I want to keep track of mileage. And I want to be sent reminders automatically when things like that happen. You've got to get your data in a good spot before you can really start making use of this. And Jim from Beemore, who, by the way, if you guys don't work with Beemore Technology, fantastic MSP. And it's a big member of ABC. They're wonderful. We work with them all the time. He talked about having data in the cloud versus on-prem. These systems can work. AI can work if your data is on-prem. We can punch a hole into the cloud. But like so many other things, AI, automation, all of these tools work better once your data is up in the cloud. So if your accounting system is still on-prem or on a server, if your main documents are still there, you should talk to me, talk to Jim, talk to others about getting them in the cloud. There are real benefits to it. One of which being these days, believe it or not, it actually is cheaper. And we can show you how and why. Getting your data into database is important. Now, once it's there, and once you've hooked your systems up into it, what are some real world examples of how we're using these things? I mentioned one already in the construction industry. We're using it to take a document, tease things out from there. Here's an organization that we work with that's fairly local, the Electrical Welfare Trust Fund. Hopefully there's some electricians in the room. Across the country, we have to upload member benefits for these folks, right? And we were going to build for them a big piece of software. This, what I'm showing on my screen, is out there on the internet. You can come here and see this and find this yourself. They were going to pay us tens of thousands of dollars to build them a system so that they could upload CSV files and Excel files that had all their members and their member benefits in it so that we could process the payments and things like that for the Electrical Welfare Union. And then at the last minute, one of my developers said, wait a minute, instead of them spending all this money to build this, what if we just gave them an AI and we said, this is what a good Excel file should look like. And if the file they upload doesn't look like that, hey, AI, tell them why. Tell them what's wrong with the file. You put a date where a name should be. You put the columns in the wrong order. You misspelled this one thing here. Tell them. And then if the file looks good, then process it into their main system. So instead of paying us tens of thousands of dollars to build a system, they paid us a couple grand, and we gave them something far better than what we could have built in the old world. And they're thrilled with it, and we're thrilled for them, right? That's an unconventional use case that you haven't heard before, but that organization made use of. It was something that before they were taking emails with these files attachments, reading them, writing back all of this data, and we were able to automate that for them by showing the system examples and building what they needed to build, right? So there's another example for you. In my organization, large and small, there's all sorts of examples of the way we use this. We're a Microsoft shop, so we have SharePoint, and we're using ChatGPT in its form as Copilot Studio. And in my company, I have an area to keep all of our employee benefits. So all of our benefit guides and things like that are in here. And I have deployed my AI into here. And I can ask it questions about these files. I can say, how much will I pay for dental insurance in 2025? I didn't throw out my 2026 guides yet, so just bear with me. And what I want you to notice in its response, which I hope is what I hope it is, you never know with these things, it's not just telling me, perfect. It's not just telling me what I would pay per month. It found that in one of the guides, $38.16. It's, what does it say? Additionally, Incite Automation fully pays for individual dental coverage, meaning if you enroll for yourself, there is no cost to you. Look at that. It didn't just spout back what the Guardian dental form said. It also looked at our overall benefits overview and realized, wait a minute, the company gives people that benefit as well. And then it referenced both of those guides. So it can ingest information from multiple documents. I see people trying to use this just as a search, and that's not what it's for. When you use it correctly, it's bringing in lots of information. And while I'm in here, I did a question across all of these documents. Look what happens when I click on one document. Ask a question about this file. Well, look what happens when I click on two documents. Ask a question about these files. I have seen organizations, and they'll say, take a look at this service agreement and our standard service agreement. And then they'll type into the chat, give me the biggest differences between these two agreements, so I don't have to read the whole thing. What's missing in theirs that we normally say? Are there any major points based on how I've trained you of what I look for, right, that I want to see in this so I can sign the other guy's contract instead of my own, right? You can use these systems to do that sort of thing. And it's really, really powerful and can save you a lot of time. It doesn't replace you, right? None of these systems will ever replace us, in my opinion, but they'll empower us to get to the work we should be doing, not the busy work like finding differences in contracts, teasing stuff out that we shouldn't be doing. Another fun example for those of you in Microsoft land, and then I'll go to some non-Microsoft stuff, I promise, Mandy, is Power Automate. Many of you in your organization already own this. And if you haven't gotten a chance to try using it before, AI gives you a great opportunity to do so. My CTO's name is Laura Gretz. And if I type into this chat, whenever I get an email, send Laura Gretz a Teams message that says, booyah. And I get about 500 emails a day, so she's going to love this. I hit generate. This tool will listen for that trigger whenever I get an email, right? And then send her a message in Teams automatically that says booyah every single time. I automated that away. And instead of building this from scratch, I had the AI build it for me. It won't be able to do everything you could dream up, but you'd be amazed at how many organizations like yours, using a tool they already own, using its AI capabilities, will type into here whenever somebody gets on the job site, send a text message to the person in charge, hey, you know, that we're 5 minutes away or something like that. This can send text messages. I had one construction organization and we hooked AI and this tool up to all the security cameras canvassing the job site. This is really wild. You guys will love this story. I was there because they had a hard hat guy, right? Somebody that was making sure that everybody wore their hard hats for insurance purposes. And I said, guys, if I hook this up to all these cameras that you're only using at night, I can train this system of what it looks like somebody wearing a hard hat versus somebody not wearing a hard hat. And every 30 seconds, I can use all the cameras. And if somebody's not wearing a hard hat, I'll take a picture of their face, send it to the project manager on site and say, this guy's not wearing a hard hat. Right. And that's exactly what we did. And so they were able to free that person up from running around telling everybody to wear their hard hat to do a better job. And they paid a lot less to do it. Pretty cool. I can also use this system to read paper-based documents. Maybe you're not ready to completely leave the paper world behind. These tools can read invoices. They can read truck service tickets. They can read handwriting, right? And then send this information off for approval. Like even in a document that's crooked and has some handwriting, make tables about that data. So if your data is not in a database, it can help you get it there first. But missing that important step is the mistake that we see a lot of people make. So let me think here. What else have we talked about? Oh, another thing. I'll show one more example, and then I'll move on to how to write some effective prompts. In my organization, and you all will find this terrifying. So apologies in advance. I have my AI hooked up to everything in my organization, right? And I can say in here, what's the latest from my COO, Erin Lamartina, organized by all of her emails, all of her chats, and all of her files, right? And it will let me know everything that she's doing. I'm the owner of the company, so I can ask that and get away with it. But we've put in lots of rules to know who's allowed to ask what. And I know this is a little bit of a shocking demo to see, but yeah. Look, it's showing me emails that she's talking through. She knows that I do this, don't worry. What she's doing right now. It shows me chats that she's having with staff, right? And it'll show me files that she's working on in our file system, which is SharePoint. Pretty cool. I will ask the system when I'm away from the office and travels, just as a quick chat, what's the general mood of the staff right now, organized by their chats and emails? I'll have this system write contracts for me. And I don't have it write the entire contract. I have Word templates for that, but I'll have it write the blurb at the beginning of the contract, right? About who the client is and what they're looking for. I will use AI in my line of work to help it work with me to come up with some of the code that I need to write. Can you show me an example of what the bot framework looks like in React? I actually had this when I was working with a client help me write some of the code that I needed to build their solution, right? And don't worry, I still charge them full price like I did it. but I had it help a lot. I'm kidding, because I bill by the hour. So anything I can do to speed up helps me and the customer. But here's how I'll often do those chats. I'll take a breath, questions before I get into how to write effective prompts. Nobody stumped me yet. I don't have to build anything for free. Okay. Um, when I'm writing prompts, it's really important that you do something that's scenario based. I want you to look at this prompt that I wrote here. We've developed a Copilot Studio bot. We want to customize the look and feel. And look what I wrote at the end. Please rate your answer on a scale of 1 to 10 and keep thinking on this until the answer is at least a 9. Okay. I didn't just accept the answer it gave me. I forced it to evaluate itself and keep going until the answer was where I wanted it to be. And it gave itself for this answer a self rating of a 9.2 out of 10. Right. A lot of the chats I'll do, I'll ask it for that. I was trying to do something before this meeting. Pretend you're the head of member management and recruiting for ABC Baltimore, the Association of Builders and Contractors. ABC Baltimore is an organization that does so much good for its members. Make a PowerPoint presentation that is 10 to 12 slides and shows its value throughout 2025. Use branding, imagery, event pictures to really make it come alive and be engaging. You can make up your own images if needed. Rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 and don't show me the presentation until it's at least a 9. It took it a good like 9-10 minutes to come up with something. And it gave itself this score. It told me what it can do to make itself stronger. It gave me the slides as a downloadable thing. I thought the slides were sort of mediocre. And then we had arguments for a while about how to make them better. And I'm not going to bother showing you the slides, but I tried it in both, and neither one of them were as good as Bonnie and what Mandy can do, but I assure you it did a pretty darn good job. But not quite good enough that it's worth showing. But note that when I was talking, I was telling it what the measure of success is. I was telling it who it is in this context. The more information I gave it, the better of a job it did, right? And so learning how to write an effective prompt is really key. And there's lots and lots of guides out there that can help make you stronger at this. I don't want to spend the entire time. There's lots of prompt engineering things that it'll do. And I will say that a lot of these AIs are getting really strong at helping you write those prompts. So your next step, would you like me to write the actual script talking points for ROI on being a member of ABC so you can pitch, so you can practice for your board meeting? They will give you suggestions of what to do better and how to make it stronger. But note that I didn't just treat it like a Google search of trying to get away with as few words as I can, right? I really engaged and try to give it a scenario. And the more you write, generally, the better of an answer you'll get. And establishing what success criteria is, what will really make you happy, and how hard it should work at that to give you that, the more you describe, the better. I feel like I'm right on time, Bonnie and Mandy, because I've got 15 minutes left. Nobody has stumped me. I went through all of the things. People are wrapping up their lunches. We're essentially crushing this.
Great.
Thank you. I need constant food, water, and feedback, or else I start losing it. Another thing I want to bring up, and then I want to see if there's some questions out there. I mentioned to you guys personal use AI, enterprise AI. By all means, use any AI at home. I do it, but I use a completely different one when I'm at work, right? Because it's hooked up to all of my data at work, right? Keep them separate, all right? People start bleeding one into the other, and that's not great. Number two, think about what level of AI you want to use, right? I mentioned there's 3 levels of easy, medium, and hard. I find the medium is the best fit for most organizations, including the ones like you guys that we work with. After you get past that, make sure that your data is in good shape. These AIs don't work well with bad data in, bad data out. Okay. So if it's not, talk to us. Try experimenting with some of these tools to get somewhere stronger. That's the key to success, using AI, giving it good data to start. making it understand what you're looking for as deeply as you possibly can, you will find that you'll get some really great results. And then lastly, I will tell you, I'm not a big fan personally of spot fix AIs. You're all bombarded with products. Buy our AI widget and it'll help you with construction, sales, and estimating. We've built an AI that does this one task well. I'm not a big fan of those in most scenarios because what you wind up with is 7 AIs, none of which talk to each other, and your data is sort of in all of them. Personally, I like to stick to the big names. Google's Gemini, ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot, Anthropic's Claude. These are household names. I trust my data more with them than somebody who's built something hyper specific to your industry that does one thing and their stuff is sitting on top of one of these. I have a concern that those are going to end poorly. So stick to the enterprise ones. Mandy says, I find Copilot to be slower and not as good as ChatGPT. You are not the only one. I agree, Mandy. I think Copilot sucks, just to say it. The one thing I like about Copilot is that it's embedded in Word, it's embedded in Outlook, it's embedded in Excel. That has a lot of advantages. I don't like Copilot, the $30 a month version of it. I think it's not worth its price. I do think that the next level up, Copilot Studio, is the place to be. It's cheaper, it's stronger. The examples I showed you today where my stuff was embedded into Teams, into SharePoint, into Outlook, and my systems, I'm paying 3 or 4 cents a message for the examples I showed you there, and I'm getting really far better results, and you saw it was running much faster. Copilot and Copilot Studio have very little to do with each other. It's just their names are similar. So Mandy, I totally agree. Copilot is the worst of those, but weirdly, Copilot Studio is my favorite among the middle ground enterprise level ones. So at home, personally, I use ChatGPT as my day in, day out daily driver. Okay. I personally jump over to Google's Gemini when I want to do videos or images. I think it's stronger than that for most use cases. That's why you saw me when I was designing some stuff for a new pinball machine using it for those. ChatGPT can do it too. I just don't think its images are quite as strong. We'll see if it gets there. But at work, I use Copilot Studio for as much as I can. The last thing I want to talk about is really how to get started. Most of you on this call have Microsoft Office 365 accounts, which means most of you on this call own Power Automate, which is a great place to get started. You saw me do some examples from there. This is a good way not to be interacting with an AI, but to start manipulating some things that you do at work and getting busy work off your plate. If you don't know, Power Automate has something built into it called the Process Miner. The Process Miner has a trial that's like 30 or 60 days. Don't pay for it, but sign up for that trial. And in that time, it downloads a little thing on your machine and it can watch how you spend your day. Like I did for this CFO, okay? And you can see here, he got 133 invoices and it watched him. 65 went down this route, 68 went down this route. And this loop took him an average of 10.2 minutes. And I said to him, if we could automate this, you would get roughly half your week back, right? And then we used Power Automate to take some of that off of his plate. And Power Automate has ChatGPT built into it, and he was able to get back a lot of those requests. Any of you that have ever emailed me before, you may find that when you email me, man, am I quick to respond. If you say, Dustin, I'd love to set up a meeting to talk more about ChatGPT versus Copilot Studio, you're going to hear back from me. Sure, I'd love to talk about that. All you have to do is click this link and schedule a meeting with me. And people always say, wow, you really respond quick. No, I don't. Anytime you send an email to me and the email address appears reputable, right, from various lists that I have, it will make a decision and say, this appears to be somebody asking Dustin to schedule a meeting about the topic that sounds like something he would do, I'm going to send back an email. Wow, I'd love to talk about that. Click this link to do that. I'm always out. I don't always have time to respond to those, but those meetings are important to me. I want to set them up and really connect with the person and have that meeting. I don't want to be busy replying to each and every one of those. On the other side, if I get an email from a partner or client that really needs my attention, I want that bubbled up. And so even if they don't put a high priority, I'll have the system do it and then send me a Teams message. Or if I'm really out, like talking like I am right now, the system knows that and it will forward it on to my COO or the head or somebody here that can respond quickly to a service request, right? So I've got things watching my email to be able to do that. I've got things helping me write proposals. I've got things helping me automate follow-up. Hey, have you got a chance to review it yet? To an extent that still feels personal. These are busy work items that aren't the best use of my time. I want to be out doing what I love, which is exploring these technologies, which is connecting with each and every one of you and talking through your scenarios and helping you figure out what those scenarios are. I want to spend time doing that, not spell checking and doing find replace in some freaking document, right? So that's how I spend a lot of time thinking about, is the activity I'm doing right now the best use of my time? Right? And I can tell you right now it is. I love doing meetings like these, right? But the next thing I do, I'm going to ask myself that same question. Then I'm going to think about, what tools do I own? What tools do I have at my disposal that I can use if I'm not happy with the item I'm doing to take that work off my plate, right? We now live in an age where, sky's the limit at this point. Whatever sort of things you come up with, that is the thing that you should be doing. It's fantastic. All right, we got 9 minutes. Any other questions? Otherwise, we can get out of school early. That's fine by me. Nobody still stumped me. I'm not scary. I don't bite. I make fun of you, but I don't bite. I'm just kidding. Mandy, Bonnie, anything you want to add?
No, I think if there's no more questions, we really appreciate you doing this for our members.
Yeah, it's always a blast. I love working with ABC. I love working with so many of your members. I was so excited when I saw some of the people signing up to reconnect with some of them because we've worked together in the past. And anybody new out there, if you want to learn more about certain scenarios you have of which of these tools to look at or use, by all means, feel free to reach out to us. We're always happy to help. We just like exploring. We're all, to a certain extent, new at this. And we're seeing lots of great practical use cases. I'll wrap up by saying one more thing on what not to use AI for. To be clear, of all the examples you saw, they were all for this client, for this project, for this customer, for this person. AI is good at that. AI is not good in 2026 at across all my projects, show me trends. That's reporting in business intelligence. It's not good at that. Across every contract we wrote last year, that's too big of a data set, right? Keep your requests one at a time, keep them clear, and you'll get much better results than trying to boil the ocean and do everything at once, right? Those are the examples that we see fail the most. And if you want to learn more, we're always happy to help.